he strolled onto our screens to become a top-class dragon slayer. His reggae sauces in stores up and down the country. And recently he's added a cookbook and hit BBC Two series to his spicy mix. We find out Levi Roots' recipe for success in Make Your Mark. What motivated you to be a chef?
Well, I think my first, inspirator, if I may say that, as always in everything, is my mother. And even to do with the whole food thing. I remember I started out at the carnival, I think it was 1991. We started at the Notting Hill Carnival, and the first year was actually doing baseball caps. Was selling t-shirts and baseball caps. It was back in the day when having these cut t-shirts were very popular. And I used to travel to America and buy them and come back and sell them at the Notting Hill Carnival. Yes. And I think it was 3 years after that of doing that and not doing very well with it, my mother actually suggested that maybe we should do food. And so she was the first person that actually said to, take the experience that she taught me along with my grandmother before her, of how to sort of make my way in the kitchen. She said, go to the carnival and try to do that. So that was the start of my whole adventures in food, so to speak.
When I say reggae, reggae, you say sauce. Reggae, reggae, sauce. Reggae, reggae, sauce.
And so your grandmother back in Jamaica, she introduced you to the recipe.
Yes, she actually taught me all I knew. My parents left in the 60s, as you do back then, to come to the UK to sort of work for your children and send for them one at a time, which is what my parents did. And there was 6 of us, of which I was the youngest. So I got the longest time with my grandmother as the youngest. So my parents didn't want to sort of struggle with a young baby here in the UK. So it was really hard for my grandmother because she had to wave goodbye to one of her charges every year until finally it was my time to sort of come. So I think maybe unknown to her, she perhaps just wanted to instill as much as she can in me about what she knew, which in the Caribbean and in a rural village like where I come from in Content in Clarendon, if you had a skill like cooking and you would do that, you tend to want to probably pass that down to your grandchild or to your children. And I think she did that to me.
Was it quite normal for you as a young man to be doing the cooking?
Well, I think the Caribbean people, tend to, the males love to be the cooks. A lot of the times in Caribbean homes, the men, are not afraid to go in the kitchen and get down with it in the kitchen. And I just had the natural flair to be able to be in the kitchen. And when I used to be on tour with my sound system, Sir Coxsone, in the 70s and in the 80s, while we were like in the dressing room or the band would be sound checking, and me as the lead singer would be in the dressing room with a little cooker and just cooking up whatever we could find in France or in Germany or wherever we ended up on tour. I just always enjoy it, and the great thing was just to try to infuse other dishes that if we would find ourselves somewhere in Europe, I would buy something there and try to Caribbeanize that so that, our palate could actually could like that. So yeah, I suppose that's how I started, just loved being in the kitchen, and wherever we ended up with music, I still managed to bring my food skills on board as well.
And who inspired you?
My grandmother and my grandfather was sort of these great Baptist church kind of singers. And if you're familiar with gospel music, like in a Baptist church, there's like a dance hall in there. My grandmother used to be this great figure that used to get up and sing and dance, and my grandfather, they used to do a duet together. So I think my whole musical, whatever came from them. And my mother, she's a great singer as well. She vocals in the church over here. She's got a great voice. So yeah, I think, it's going to be a family thing that sort of come down in my blood,
So who was the person that inspired you or that said to you, let's go on Dragon's Den?
Yes. I think the whole journey for the Dragon's Den journey started off with when I met who was to become my first mentor, which was a lady called Nadia Jones. She worked for a company called Greater London Enterprise, which was set up by the mayor back in the day. 2006 it was at the time. And it was for the first time I decided to listen to somebody else, because I'd never gone through mentoring or anything like that before. So, and because I was so well known in the music to be this kind of a roots singer and be the leader of the band and all that, you're always in a position where you always told people what to do. So for the first time when I was decided to go into the food business, I had to get myself a mentor to listen to somebody else for a change, which was very difficult for me. But I just sort of knew that if you're going to get anywhere, you've got to listen to advice. And I decided to just go underneath the wings of Nadia, and whatever she told me to do, wherever she told me to go with my sauce, because she thought the idea was fantastic. She tasted it, she said that she believed in it wholeheartedly, and if I followed her, what she said to do, it would be a success. And it was while I was at one of the festivals, the World Food Market in the Excel in East London, that I was spotted by the Dragons Den. So if I didn't listen to what Nadia was saying and persevered, that she said, keep doing exhibitions, you keep going out there doing your stuff, I would be here now. So it's all about mentoring and just changing your whole attitude.
And even in this current financial climate that we're in, I think it's a fantastic opportunity for us to be enterprising. Yeah. Because again, it goes back to trying to get your head above everybody else. Because now when everybody thinks that it's a bad time, perhaps you, who've got a real enterprising idea, will think to say, actually, it's a great time for me to actually go in the market and do something with it.
So how did you feel when you were about to step out in front of those dragons?
Well, dragons are terrifying, you know, and for me, I actually wanted to read up a few things about dragons before I went on. So I just looked up King Arthur and read about him and St. George's and the Dragons, and knew that you had to have an Excalibur. You had to have a unique selling point in our terms, which King Arthur had his Excalibur, his sword. But for me, it was about having a unique selling point to slay my dragons. And I went with my guitar as my Excalibur, my weapon, that this is what I'm going to use. This is it. Wrote my song and said that I'm going to believe in Levi Roots and what I'm capable of doing. And my song is going to be my USP. You know, and I think that's what I believed in most of all, more than anything. And that's how I went and slayed the dragons, because I wanted to be me and make sure that when I face dragons, I'm comfortable. I don't want to go and face dragons with a lot of pretend numbers in my head, as you do when dragons enter. That's what it is. People go on with a lot of numbers, and once they face the dragons, you know, everything is just like, wow, I've forgotten everything. Head's empty, and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to be me, so I was very comfortable with my guitar, because all my life I've waited at the end of the stairs, waiting for my name to be called. I go up and I play. I've done that for 30 years. And Dragons Den was no difference. I was at the bottom of a stage, waiting for my name to be called with my guitar, and I was called, and I went on and I performed.
What would you say to date is your biggest achievement?
Young people all over the country, you know, are really now interested in business and enterprise. And you know, if I can kind of I think I have a little bit to do with that, because Dragons Den and Levi Roots' appearance with this sauce song has now become so popular. I do something like 3 schools a day sometimes, all over the country. 10, 15 schools a week is not abnormal for me to do. But Dragons Den and The Apprentice and things like this, now young kids know about enterprise, they know about business, they know entrepreneur, which back in my day, I couldn't even spell entrepreneur, much less pronounce it and know what it means.
No matter where you're from, no matter what background you're from, whatever you do, you can do it. Yeah, because Levi did it.
It's fantastic to see how business has now become cool. I think that's like my greatest achievement that I would like to claim.
What people don't know is it's not all been, you know, plain sailing for you. You had a spell in prison, for example. And how did things get to that point, and what turned you around and made you think, I've got to sort this out?
I think I was a production of the 70s. And back then in the 70s, all you had to do to get into trouble was to be my color, you know, or live where I lived. It's a two thing, you know, because you could be white and still you suffer affliction and stuff like that within the ghetto area. I grew up in that, and you know, I was black, so I got a lot of scrapes and trouble. But I think the journeys that I went through has actually shaped me to who I am now. I doubt very much that if I had all this fame and everything when I was much younger, that I would have carried it through to how I'm doing it now. Because I mean, even the things like my prison sentence that I did back in the 80s, I think that gave me an opportunity to move away from Keith Graham, which is my real name, which is the name that my mother gave me, and who you identify with your name, who you are. I think when I was, sort of left school and that I looked in the mirror and I found out that Keith Graham is like a Scottish name. And I looked in the mirror and I thought, I don't look Scottish. I've got to find out who I am. And finding out who I am, and decided upon the name Levi Roots to identify with who I feel I am. I think my prison sentence gave me the opportunity to change from the Keith Graham who had got me to the prison in the first place and got me doing everything because I couldn't identify. Because in Tulsa, where I went to school, there wasn't such anything as black history. You didn't know who you was. I actually thought the slaves were somebody else. And we used to call people African, boo-boo and all that, not knowing that we were actually the Africans. So it wasn't until I learned all that, changed from Keith Graham, the Scottish man, to Levi Roots, the African that knowed my identity and who I was, in prison, and really honed myself and said, this is the change of me. As well as meeting other influential people, on the way. This is how I've managed to kind of change from the Keith Graham who got me in a lot of trouble in Brixton to the Levi Roots, the reggae singer, the sauce man, the entrepreneur.
What next for Levi Roots?
Mayor London.
Why not?
I think the key thing for me is just trying to extend the brand. I think because it's Caribbean food. It's not about Levi Roots. I think if I can big up Caribbean food in the right way, where it's up there with Indian food and all other fantastic food here in the UK, I think that maybe I will be the market leader in that. And yeah, that's my biggest passion really, is to move on Caribbean food and put it up there so people can enjoy jerk chicken and rice and peas and all that, as they do when they go in and buy a chicken tikka masala or whatever.
Levi, how would you most like to be remembered?
And if you can do that and all that, then and only then will you be able to slay your own dragons. Thank you very much, Rastafari.
Dragon Slayer.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Levi Roots.